My twin sister has the worst taste in men, and now she's dating an actual criminal who's starting drama with our family, but I have a plan to break them up. So I, 25F, have an identical twin sister and I think she may be dating a criminal. Let me start a little bit before that. We may look alike and come from the same womb, but it basically stops there. I've always been more of the arty type and she's been more of the cheerleader type. And while we do have that twin connection that you always hear about, I honestly sometimes feel like it's not as strong as it's supposed to be. I have a lot of guilt over that, which maybe I shouldn't. You like what you like, right? But one of the ways we very much differ is our taste in men. For instance, I don't like them at all, and she's always been absolutely boy mad. So as you can see, we're kind of different. I have a girlfriend that I've been with for a couple years now, but it seems like my sister has a boyfriend every 3 weeks or so. I'm not trying to judge her. It would be different if she actually seemed to enjoy herself, but every relationship is always more about drama than fun. Or maybe for her it's the same thing. And it seems like the boyfriends are getting worse each time. For example, we thought Carl was scraping the bottom of the barrel. He lived with his parents and had not had a job since he was 16. And that one was for only 2 weeks at Dairy Queen one summer. And then there was Dan. We thought he was hitting relationship rock bottom. His idea of a good time was taking her to a drag race on a Friday night. Preferably an illegal one. So let's just say I wasn't very hopeful when I heard that she was taking her new beau to mom and dad's for the Memorial Day cookout. It's not that I think the worst of her, it's just that she's let me down so many times with these losers. I figure if I keep my expectations low, one of these days one of them won't be so bad. Well, Travis is obviously bad. In fact, I can't think of one good thing about him. And with a face like his, I'm surprised our dad didn't check him for weapons as he came in the door. I know how mean that sounds, but the guy just has one of those faces. Also, dad is kind of the paranoid type anyway, and the last few boyfriends haven't helped things. They got there fashionably late, of course. My sister was wearing her insanely short cutoffs and a skimpy tank top. I'm no prude, but we had extended family there from out of town. Old people. And then there was Travis, coming in with his pot leaf t-shirt and cheap chains around his neck, and that ridiculous flat bill hat that he thought made him look oh so gangsta. My mom's jaw about dropped on the floor when she saw him. And it almost fell through it when he opened his mouth. He spoke a strange mix of slang and an obviously fake Jamaican accent, and walked like he had a constant mix of reggae in his head at all times. But behind the hippie facade was definitely something dark and sinister. He was cagey about his job. He claimed to work from home but struggled to come up with who. He finally decided on freelancing, but when he couldn't name any of his clients, said they were confidential government contracts. Yeah, right. He didn't really appreciate my dad's sarcastic comment about how he thinks you have to pass a drug test to work on government contracts. He said something like, "Oh yeah, what do you know about it, Mr. Factory Worker?" It was an obvious attempt to disparage my dad's job, but it wasn't a very informed one. Yeah, my dad works at a factory, but he's in the main office and he's kind of important. And not that there would be anything wrong with him working on the floor. It seemed that Travis wasn't only a liar with bad fashion sense, he was an elitist. Thankfully my dad's a pretty cool customer and just let it roll off his back. He's been down this road with her boyfriends before and knows that they don't stick around long enough to cause him any serious problems anymore. But I swear, there was something in my sister's eyes that told me she's genuinely in love with this guy. Maybe my parents can't see it, but I can. She is my twin, after all. This was a Memorial Day cookout, so there was booze, of course. And Travis helped himself to the high alcohol content beer that my Uncle Dave brought. He didn't ask, of course, and it seemed to hit him like a ton of bricks. Apparently he hadn't eaten all day, and had 2 before we'd even started. So that's of course, predictably, where the trouble really began. Thanks a lot, Uncle Dave. So I guess my sister has it in her head that I'm the favorite twin. It's an idea I've heard her grumble about a few times in the past, but I never thought she believed it as seriously as she apparently does. I always thought she was just kind of joking, or being the little brat she's always been. But I guess her and Travis have had multiple heart-to-hearts about how she always felt like I got all the attention, and all the love, and all the pain it's caused her because of it. Blah blah blah. Just for the record, I know there's 2 sides to every story, but none of that is true. Absolutely none of it, and if anything, it is the opposite. Back in junior high and most of high school, my sister was a total mess. She was always getting in trouble at school, her grades were in the toilet, and one time she even got caught in some park drinking with some older kids. There were counselors and psychiatrists and the whole thing. And then there was me, the good daughter, getting good grades and staying out of trouble. Ugh, she's so full of crap. How is she my twin again? Well, anyway, I guess the alcohol got Travis bold enough to confront my parents about the horrible, abusive childhood they inflicted upon her. And it got loud and ugly fast. I thought the cranky old dude across the street was going to call the cops on us for sure, but he must be losing his hearing in his old age. It may have helped that after Travis accused my mom of not protecting her daughter, and Grandpa Joe grabbed him by his neck and led him all the way to the curb. I love my Grandpa Joe. He's a veteran, and just about the last guy you want to insult his daughter in front of. But my sister was screaming the whole, on Travis' side of course, until they both got in his crappy old Camaro and peeled off. Some terrible mumble rap was blaring from the subwoofer as they drove down the street, and Grandpa Joe literally shook his fist at them like some meme. Needless to say, they were the talk of the rest of the cookout. I moved from group to group, table to table, hearing all the varied opinions on the subject. Of course, a lot of people held back their true feelings with the twin sister around, but not my Aunt Rita. Aunt Rita always told the truth. Always told it just like it is. It was definitely a breath of fresh air. She said she'd never seen such a sickening display of rude entitlement. There was nothing to disagree with there. Everyone else just said things like, well, she always did have a wild streak, or I hope the two of them don't get serious. Well, like I said, something in my sister's eyes told me that Travis had a serious hold on her. I know that she's living her own life, and I can't make her decisions for her, but the more I thought about it later that night, the more I wanted to do something. Do what exactly? I didn't know. I just needed to talk her out of wanting to be with this piece of crap. Or at least somehow show her that that's what he is. And that's when I came up with the idea to follow Travis. It's creepy, I know, but I was tired of seeing my sister manipulated by these guys. And she was now in serious danger of being exiled from the family for good. You seriously don't want to piss off Grandpa Joe on Memorial Day. But when I decided to follow him after he dropped off my sister, what I discovered was worse than I could possibly have imagined. First off, he didn't automatically go straight home to work on his freelancing career. Unless his home is Peach's strip club and he freelances as a drug dealer. I don't have hard proof, but I followed him to the dumpy place and watched him go in and out at least 6 times, seeming to make various transactions. And no, I did not go in. That is definitely not my scene. It's not like any of this is a surprise. I mean, the guy had a giant pot leaf on his shirt, but it was still a little more than discouraging. Even if my sister was into Travis because he was the bad boy, I doubt she knew he was this bad. And don't get me wrong, it's not that I'm judging the guy. Well, maybe I am. I know I'm judging him for what happened at the end of the night. I'd been sitting in my car for nearly 3 hours. I couldn't believe how exhausted and uncomfortable I was. How do cops and private detectives do it? I was actually beginning to doze off, but I guess it was closing time, because people started streaming out of the club, and I was jolted uncomfortably awake. There were all types coming out, believe me, and everyone seemed totally wasted. And one of the last guys to come out just so happened to be Travis, and he wasn't as alone as when he came in. He had 2 women with him, dancers by the looks of them. He stumbled to his car and held the door open for them both, got in and sped away, but not before I managed to get half a phone's worth of pictures. So I guess I got what I was hoping to get. Clear photographic evidence of Travis being a total poss that my sister simply can't refute. I decided to show my parents before going to her first. First of all, they were dumbfounded that I literally followed him to Peach's. My mom said I could have gotten myself killed. Dad said he was mad, but I think he was secretly proud of me for going all PI on him and taking such a risk for the family. But to my surprise, they were split on whether or not I should confront my sister with them. And who took which side surprised me even more. While Mom was all for sharing the damning picture with her, and even wanted to be there when I did it, my dad said he thought it was a bad idea. When we asked him why, he very calmly and confidently said that if she's honestly in love with him, it won't matter. That she'll come up with any sort of excuse or justification for the behavior. Sure, she may be super mad at first, but a guy like Travis will always be able to talk his way back into her good graces. I had to admit, it was a pretty convincing case. But I also had to admit that my dad didn't know anything about women. At least much less than my mom and I, and let's not forget, my sister was my twin after all. If there was ever a disturbance in the force, I would be the one to feel it. So as you can see, now I'm in a bit of a predicament. Should I show my sister the pictures and risk her doubling down on Travis, or take my dad's advice and let the chips fall where they may? I'm not one to meddle in other people's business. I guess there's a first for everything, right? Update 1. So after some careful consideration, I decided to do what I always thought I should do, and what most of you in the comments seem to think I should do as well, and confront my sister with the pictures. I thought it was probably best to show them to her in person rather than just send her a big photo dump. I had no idea where she'd be when she saw them, and knowing my sister, she could even be checking her phone while driving. I decided to invite her out for a drink at her favorite bar. She was a little surprised. I don't think I've ever asked her out for a drink before. Mostly because I don't really drink and I hate bars. And every time we've gone out to one together, we just end up with drunk brothers hitting on us and asking us weird questions. But I told her I wanted to talk about all of this stuff about me being mom and dad's favorite, which was a lie. It had been hanging over my head just as much as her relationship with Travis, and I wanted to deal with it once and for all. She was in a cautiously good mood when we met at the bar, and I loosened her up with a couple of shots of some horrible drink I'd never heard of. I figured there was no way I could just go headfirst into talking about her complicated feelings toward me, so I took the roundabout way, reminiscing about stories from our childhood. Finally, I got her to mention the now infamous Memorial Day cookout herself. She said that while she felt bad that the truth had to come out like that, she didn't regret it. And it took Travis opening up her eyes and showing her how to be honest with herself that gave her the courage to confront us. I reminded her that it was actually Travis who confronted mom and dad, but she said that her memory of that day was a little bit hazy. The two of them had been pre-gaming it pretty heavily beforehand. She then went on to tell me that it was different with Travis, and that he really gets her. She knows she's made plenty of mistakes with relationships in the past, but she knows for a fact that those days are over. Travis would always be Gru. She knew it for a fact. I decided to ask her straight up what Travis did for a living, and she tried to stick with a freelancer cover store, but could tell I wasn't buying it. She finally admitted that he only sells a little weed on the side to buy groceries for his brother's kids. I don't know what infuriated me more, the ridiculous cover story or the fact that my sister seemed to actually believe it. I very nearly decided not to show her the pictures. I don't know why, but I just felt so sorry for my sister at that moment. But what she said next made the decision an obvious one. She said her and Travis were going to get engaged. I couldn't believe my ears. They'd been together, what, a month? It was time to drop the nuclear bomb on this relationship. And that's exactly what it was. And everyone in that bar was lucky to make it out with their life. I felt bad losing them all that business. I mean, nobody wants to drink at a place where a girl is weeping hysterically all over the bar. But what could I do? All I could do was try my best to drag her out of there and get her home. After she slept for a good 6 hours, she got up and worked up the nerve to call Travis. I convinced her that it wasn't a good idea to break up with him on purpose. I didn't tell her the exact reasons why, but kind of like what my dad was saying, I knew that would make it easier for him to talk her out of it. Plus, she'd have the moral support of me standing beside her backing her up. Of course, the scumbag tried to lie his way out of it. Even after she sent him a bunch of the pictures, he said it wasn't him, that they were fake, that I was just trying to frame him. He even accused me of being in love with him, and of hitting on him at the cookout. Sorry, pal, but I don't even swing that way. I think that's what finally convinced my sister that this guy was no good. Maybe if he hadn't tried to throw me under the bus one time too many times, or told such a provable lie, but it just put everything in perspective for her. So I'm happy to say that it's been a week and she's gone totally no contact with Travis. Not that he hasn't tried to get in touch with her, but she's holding strong. I have to say, I'm pleasantly surprised by my younger sis by 7 minutes. Maybe she's finally growing up.